I invite you now to just close your eyes and hold a vision for me of our planet, of our big blue marble. It is challenged. A moment. So my prayer. Spirit, make me an instrument of your spirit, of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born into eternity. And so it is. Amen and amen. So good morning. It's fun seeing new faces that I haven't seen in a while. So thank you for having me here this morning. And you're probably going to learn more about me today than you'd ever really want to know. So this is about my journey, and I have a guiding principle, and it is that I teach when I need to learn. So here we go. And I think I have a trait that I think I was born with. And I'll tell you why, and it's called resistance. About 5 years ago, my mother gave me a box that was full of stuff, and I didn't look through it immediately. But when I did, I realized that in it were a bunch of my grade school report cards. And I went to a religious school. I went to a Jesuit school. 12 years. And so half of it was grades and half of it was character and character building stuff. And as I went through the character building stuff, I made a list of what was written about me, and so I'm just going to read you some of the list. It said strong-willed, deliberate, opinionated, willful, stubborn, obstinate, knows what she wants, certain. So, my mother used to spend the winters with us here, and she and Fred were having a conversation about the report cards. And Fred looked at her and said, "And did she always have the look?" And my mother just laughed and she said, "Oh yeah, she had it even as a toddler." And I kind of looked at them, and I realized that the look was, and you know, Fred used to say things like, when that look shows up, the discussion is over. My mother said that the first complete sentence that I learned, that I spoke as a child, as a toddler, was, "I don't want to do it." And she said it was like non-negotiable. And as I got a little bit older, one of the things that I get threatened to do when things weren't going my way is I'm going to lock myself in the basement. Now, I know that some of you who don't come from places where they have basements don't understand the emotional baggage that it carries. But basements were dark, scary places that you weren't allowed to go, and the door locked from the inside. And that's what I never did it, but I was threatened to do it. And my mother's backup thing was like, don't lock yourself in the basement, just go to your room. Okay. So, one of the things I've come to realize is that change is tough. And that it's usually met with a satchel full of coping mechanisms for me, which is things like procrastination, avoidance, resistance, and sometimes even anger. So about a year ago, I came to the realization that resistance wasn't serving me very well. I was feeling very stuck. I was almost feeling immobilized, and it was in two particular areas. One of them is sort of emotion-late, and the other one is just sort of stupid. And the stupid one is technology. Okay. I'm a Luddite. Okay, I don't really do technology well. And for the last year, the universe has been providing me with an exorbitant amount of opportunities to learn how to deal with technology and not resist it. And here's example number one. I've handwritten notes because I couldn't figure out how to get my new computer to talk to my new printer so that I could actually print out what I had written in my computer. Okay. And the other day my phone died, and I went to the store and I got a new phone, and now I just about know how to answer it. Okay, so I keep getting the opportunities. The second one was, as some of you know, I lost my husband a couple of years ago, and we have a ranch, and he was an arborist, and we had a tree farm, and I had to get to the point where I got to dismantle it. It's not being maintained. The hoses are leaking, the trees are dying, and I had just not wanted to deal with it. And I lived in the space that said, I don't want to do this. And about 8 months ago, I drove out there and I came up and there was, my well had been running probably for days. I mean, I had a lake out there. So I had to deal with it. So now I'm going to talk to you about this journey, this road that I'm traveling, and some of the things that I've learned about how to deal with it. So, first thing is, I have to notice it. Resistance is common, and I'll share another thing with you. So in my notes, instead of that writing resistance, I just put a big R. The big R, okay, is common. We feel it in our bodies. Okay. It's scary to some extent, and it's powerful. And one of the things I've come to know is that I can take one of two paths when I'm dealing with this resistance. The first one is denial. Hide it, push it away, distract myself, go do something else entirely different, read a book, talk on the phone, go shopping, whatever. Just don't deal with it at all. Or, and this one is probably close to being bodily abusive, stampede through it. And this is what I do the ranch sometimes. And I took it off this morning, but I've been wearing a wrist brace because I was hauling 30-gallon containers and I twisted my arm. And I was making myself do something I didn't want to do. And in that making, I was causing harm. I was causing myself to hurt. So I know that these two paths don't work for me. So I'm coming to learn that there's a third path. And what that is, it involves meeting the resistance. Just living with it. And I've actually approached it in a couple of ways, but the one that works best for me is like it's in my face. I just sort of bring it up there, and it's in my face, and I'm going to get to know it. I'm going to get to know why it's there. I'm going to get to know what it's going to teach me. I'm going to get to know the lesson that I need to learn from it. So, I really like physical examples, and the one that works for me when I think about resistance is I think about like two power poles with power lines strung between them. And there's a balance that happens, okay? So there's tension on both sides, keeps the power lines straight. Sometimes when it's real windy, one of them will flex, the other one will flex, but there's some equilibrium that happens. But think about what would happen if they both went the opposite way. What would happen is the wire would snap. And so learning about flexibility as I look at when I'm resisting, not thinking that there's only one way to think about it, thinking that there's not only one way to look at it, allows me, just like those poles, to go back and forth without snapping. So I meet the resistance when it feels right. I don't try to deal with it when it doesn't feel, when I don't feel strong enough, when I don't feel capable enough, when I don't feel resilient enough, whatever it is. I don't, I meet it when I know that I can deal with it. I work at softening my heart, and then I back off, just like that pole. I back off from that confrontation, knowing that I'll have the opportunity to try it again. Because it's a constant dance back and forth. So every time I faced it again, and this had to do with dismantling the tree farm. Now, there are some of you, Mary and Floyd especially, who know my battle because they've walked it with me this whole time. It's very emotionally. My husband was an arborist. We spent most of our free time out there. It was our project into retirement. And so that is what I have to deal with most of the time out there. And I'm actually doing it. I'm doing it in a way that feels healthy. I'm doing it in a way that allows, that honors where I am emotionally at any given time. And I don't have to do it all in one day. That's like, oh, that's the resistance part. That's the old path that says, I'm going to go at this, and 200%, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to cover it. No, I'm happy. So I give myself permission to notice the resistance and try and make friends with it, if that makes sense. Try to realize what it is the resistance is trying to teach me. Because it is my teacher. On a spiritual level, that resistance is my gut trying to tell me something about myself. It's spirit speaking in me and through me and then coming out of me as I show up in the world with a lesson that is mine to learn. And I'm going to learn it. If I don't learn the lesson at that one point, it's going to keep on coming back. And I know that for sure. So I'm trying to make peace with it. So every time I get into it, I push a little further, I allow it to go in a little bit more, and then I notice my response. I notice how I feel about giving it permission to do that. And it's not, and all the time something grabs my attention. There's a word, an insight, a feeling, and sometimes I can live with it, and then other times I'm going to go before. I'm going to go do something else, maybe not something silly like go shopping, but I'm going to see if I can find some insight in a book or listen to some music that'll calm me down. But living with it, sitting with it, is where the lesson is for me. And I don't always do it. I practice every day, but I don't always do it. Because what ends up happening is, and what I've realized is, I want to do anything but sit with the feelings that come up when I look at that resistance. Because it's never about the thing that I'm doing. It's never about going out and cutting hoses in the field. It's never about moving containers. It's not about that stuff. But I would like it to be about that stuff, because like that I can handle. It's always about something else that's getting displaced into the physical. The other piece of it is that I ask for guidance, and then I try to negotiate with the guidance. Okay. So you get guidance to do something, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. Couldn't we please take an intermediate step? Couldn't we please do this instead? And then I realize what I'm doing. That resistance is like, I think about it as the Jesuits I had in school. Okay, so I went to a Jesuit school, and I had a magnificent education, but they would be so spot on that nothing, they would listen to you, they'd let you talk, what you wanted to do, you could do whatever you wanted, and they never wavered. And sometimes when I look at the lessons that I'm getting from that resistance, that's what I sense is, no, Spirit's telling you this is what it is, and you can do all the human things you want to do to talk me out of it, but I'm not going to talk about it. This is the thing. So, I live in the tension, that's the energies that pull me from one direction to the other. I try not to get to the place where it snaps. Because inside me, I know that there, part of that energy is the energy that wants me to grow, that wants me to transform, that wants me to change the current situation into something that's for my better good, even if I can't see it. And the other side of that is I want everything to stay the same because I think that I feel safe there. And that tension is where growth happens. You know, if you take a tree and you stake it so hard, like when you plant a new tree, and you stake it so hard that it doesn't move, it will die. Because it needs to move to develop roots that will make it anchor and make it solid in the ground. And so, I know that here, and I'm getting to the place where I'm getting to know it here and here. Because to me, that's where the lesson lives. It's not an intellectual lesson, it's a heart-gut lesson. So when I'm dealing with all of this, what is it that I do? Okay, unfortunately, I'm more of a human doing than a human being. So what do I do? I stop. I literally stop myself, sometimes mid-mental sentence. I check, I do a body check. I check where the tension is in my body when I'm feeling that resistance. Because Spirit's giving me a gift. It's like, you're not going to listen to me, so I'm going to let your body tell you what you need to know. And then I listen to the emotions that come up when I come to that realization, because they always do. And sometimes it looks like fear, and sometimes it looks like grief, and sometimes it looks like I'm overwhelmed and I don't know how to do overwhelmed. But it's all there. The second thing that I do is I breathe. I'm a big fan of breathing exercises. I breathe and allow. Now, I got to the point where I finally get clear that allowing doesn't mean approving. So I allow it to happen because it is. I don't have to like it. I don't have to approve of it. I don't have to agree with it. I just have to allow it. Because then I'm dealing with reality and not some made-up thing of what I want to do. The other thing thing that I try to do is to move into resistance, then toward it, and not pull away from it. And try to understand what it's trying to teach me. I can't tell you that I've gotten like complete clarity about this, because that would be a lot. But I get little bits of insight. I get little bits of you're feeling vulnerable. I get a little bit of you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling lonely, you're feeling scared, or you're feeling powerless. Those are some of the kinds of things that come up. And when I name them, they aren't so scary. So it kind of removes the power from them when I sit with them and say, yes, this is what's happening. This is how I feel. This is what I want to deal with. And then I live in gratitude for the fact that they show up, because they're going to teach me something. And that's the lesson in it, is that they will teach me. I will grow from that going back and forth. Just like the tree grows stronger when it goes back. I will grow. I am growing, spiritually and emotionally. And all of the time, I don't want to's. I don't want to do it. I can't do it. It's not fair. All of this stuff keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. And I just allow it. I can't make it not happen. And I just try to visualize that willful 3-year-old toddler that says, I don't want to do it. Because that's what's acting. That is what's acting out at that particular moment. And how would I treat that child? I would treat her with kindness, with appreciation for her personality, for a vision of what she could grow into. I certainly wouldn't demean her, or reprimand her, or make her less than. So I'm not going to do it to me as an adult, because inside me is that little 3-year-old defiant, willful, deliberate, stubborn toddler. And when I'm going through all of this, oftentimes it's like my chest feels heavy. It feels like there's a weight on it sometimes. Like my heart is heavy from it. And then I feel overwhelmed sometimes. And it's funny because I talked to my therapist about this, and we finally, I had this feeling when my life was in the dumpster for a while. And we finally decided that what I was feeling was overwhelmed, and I didn't know how to do overwhelmed. I'd never been there before. I'm 76 years old, and I never knew what overwhelmed felt like. But I was overwhelmed. Okay, so now it has a name, and now I can learn about it, and then I can try to do something about it. So, if we want to spiritually evolve, I need to heed the call of the big R, of resistance. I need to face it. I need to face whatever it presents for me. And I need to accept what will change. Because in that acceptance are the seeds of change. Otherwise I'd be stuck. And so one of the things I deal with sometimes is what has to die within me in order for that new me to be there. I have to let go of something that has sustained me for 76 years. I have to let go of that in order for the new thing to have room to grow. Or the thing that's been in there for 76 years is going to squish out. It's just like when you plant something in your garden. If there's a bed of weeds, you have to clear out those weeds before you put in a new seed, or the weeds just won't let the new seed grow. It's the same idea. Okay, I have this new seed, this new inspiration, this new calling of spirit. But in order for it to thrive, I have to clear out the weeds. And I have to pull them out by the roots. Just like in your garden, sometimes you pull them out, you don't get all the roots. So they keep coming back up. But you have to keep after it. I have to keep after it all of the time. Say, yeah, I know that one. Yeah, I know that one. Great friends with that one. And just keeping that process going, keeping it lubricated, will provide for me a shift in my perception. And it's when I do that, I almost don't have to decide to have that shift in perception. It's a product of it. So, I sit still, I listen to my inner voice out loud. And then I say, yeah, what should I do about this? And then I realize that question is just another distraction. It's a way for me to pull out of living with what I'm living with into doing something as a way of distracting me from living with energy. So, because here's the truth. The truth is I already know the answer. And so do you. If I face resistance with an open heart, that right answer will rise to us. Because we are connected to the wisdom of the universe. We already know the answer. It's not something we have to learn. It's something for which we have to clear out the debris, pull out the weeds, quit fighting back, and lean into it. Because that wisdom is part of our divine inheritance. Now, we've mutilated it, we've bent it to our egos, we've tried to make it into something we think it should be. But the truth of it is, it exists. And what we have to do is uncover and discover. And I come to the realization that I'm